Hey. Jay, how you doing, my friend?
Good, good. How's it going, boss?
Good, man. Bro, I've been looking forward to this. I really have, man. I've been really looking forward to this. I'm a big fan. I follow y'all all the time. Of course, right here.
My man. Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
that,
yeah,
brother.
yeah. Yeah, this is like a staple. We're gonna get into this a lot once we start this conversation, but I have a lot of just really important things to say that derive from this that I just think is, to me, this is like foundational for, I can't even say Black people in cryptocurrency. I just feel Black people, period, need to read this book and then begin to start wrapping their heads around the applications of what you are laying out in this book. I just think it's really important. And of course, you have the second one on it's on its way, and I can't wait to get that because I'm really looking forward to it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, we'll get into it. And yeah, I
absolutely,
appreciate the support, brother. Glad to be here.
no man, 100, no man, Zay, 100, man, for real. All right, so looking to see if anyone else is going to be joining us. It might just be me and you. Like usually we got a full panel, of course, with Cherie and Dr. Keisha and Talisha and Tawana, but it might just be just us two on. So, well,
Yeah,
listen.
Dr. Keisha, yeah, I haven't talked to him in a little bit. Be good to speak.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, give it. And oh yeah, and Zay, I want to congratulate you too. Like you're a new father.
Oh
So,
yeah. Thank,
congratulations, brother. There you go. You
thank you,
know,
my brother. I appreciate it.
yeah.
Definitely a fun experience. Definitely.
Absolutely, man. I tell you flat out, man. For me, it is the greatest role in my life. It's being a father. And
Absolutely.
all of that. So
Oh
for
yeah.
sure, it's a wonderful journey to be on, man. So I know just you, the type of person you are, you're gonna make a great dad. Like I know that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, just trying to get her to say Bitcoin as the first words. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a tough one.
There you go. Yeah, raise them up right. There you go. All right, so listen. So Zay, we're gonna get started, because I'm looking at seeing at the time now. So we're at 7:33. So I'm gonna open it up. Hey everyone. Of course, this is on a Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve, and this is Blockchain Chat. And I am really excited. I've been looking forward to this discussion. Of course, you know me, Eric Spence, member of the Inner Circle here at BBC, also president of Blockchain Consortium International. And I am really excited, just to have our guest on, Mr. Isaiah Jackson, who is the author of the book, putting this up, Bitcoin in Black America. And of course, he will have also on the way, there is a second edition that will be, coming out, I guess. Isaiah, what is that, in a day or so, right?
Yeah, very. Yep. Yep. Friday, Black Friday.
Absolutely. So, Isaiah, if you don't mind, just for people who maybe aren't familiar with you, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself to them and giving them?
Oh yeah. So once again, thank you for having me on the show, brother Eric. Thanks for the support. But yes, my name is Isaiah Jackson. I have been in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space since 2013, going on almost 8 years now. And for those of you who are, pretty new to the game, one thing I always like to tell people is that when I started, I thought I was too late, and so that's one little bit of encouragement I try to give people. Trust me, as much as you may think, I'm an expert, whatever, I always thought, I was too late. But now it's a great time to be into it. And sort of my background, got into Bitcoin with the tech background, learned the financial side, started doing educational courses. I've written 3 Bitcoin starter guides. Also started our daily show, The Gentleman of Crypto. And after seeing a few bull and bear markets, just stuck with it. And here we are today with Bitcoin and Black America first and second edition, and just trying to keep that going long term. So that's been my journey so far. It's been fun. Been a fun ride.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, of course, you mentioned the Gentleman of Crypto podcast. You guys are on daily at 10 a.m. Eastern time, correct?
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yep.
And,
10
and,
a.m.
and there you go. And one important thing that I want to tell everyone, please check out the podcast, because this is a space in which there's so much information that I mean, Isaiah, you might as well say, at least on a weekly basis, so much of it. It's really important to have people like yourself to kind of filter and curate that information and say what's one of the most important takeaways that we can get from a lot of the information. So you guys do a great service.
I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. It can be overwhelming. We try and take a huge mass of news and try and push it in 30 minutes so you can get it and go.
Absolutely. There you go. Well, Isaiah, let me just ask you this first. Let's start on this. Okay. What prompted you to write this book? What were some of the things that led you to want to go and to write a book on Bitcoin in Black America?
Oh yeah. So a couple things prompted it. One being that when I first got into the Bitcoin space, how Bitcoin was used, I always sort of in the back of my mind would think this would be perfect if Black people were using this, because everybody talks about how they hate the government, they don't like the economy, it's not working for us. Then I was like, well, this is totally different. Why don't Black people use it? And then I just sort of put that in the back of my mind because in my eyes, starting a currency from scratch was still scary in 2013. However, I would go to conferences. I would be the only Black person there for years, like 2 or 3 years. I was the only one, and I was like, we are the ones that should take more advantage of this. And then when we started doing our educational consulting, all of our clients were Black. So I was like, well, if I want to get this information to Black people, and I'll focus on Black people simply for the fact that I didn't want us to miss it this time. And by miss it, I mean the biggest financial transfer of wealth maybe in our lifetime. We can't miss this. And I just wanted to make sure that I put that out. I figured a book was more efficient. Even though we do have the daily show, we do individual consulting. A book was more efficient. And I think the information, once it's out there organically, this book has grown. Now people are starting to create their own ideas. And I've seen other books come out based around something similar. Even people mention it. So good to see. And I mean, even the head of crypto at Visa just mentioned, hey, crypto community, the Black community could use crypto. Like he did a whole thread on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, I wrote about that last year, but
Yeah.
and so I'm just glad it's catching on because the message itself came as a result of me wanting to make sure Black people get this message. Now I feel like my hands are clean. Like, all right, man, I've given all the information over the years, no more excuses. So just wanted to make sure I get that out.
See, that's awesome. And, like one of the things that I say this often at times and when on our blockchain chats is I'll say to people, bring your entire self
Mhm.
into crypto, bring your whole identity, your whole humanity into it. Don't just kind of come in and kind of like, just filter yourself into the way someone else is doing something. No, bring your entire self. And that means your perspective, things you've seen, problems you've seen, all of that, bring all of that in. And, that's why I believe this book is so important, because you're touching on subjects. And listen, I came in, Isaiah, way after you. I came in 2017. Of course, we know what that was like, with the bull market and everything like that. But since that point, of course, our founder, Sri Ward, founded this group, and really cut and assimilate us all together. But one of the things was, of trying to bring in all of the information and seeing all the things that are taking place. And why I say that about people bringing in their whole humanity is you start to see applications that address problems that other people, for them, like many times, like they're not even aware of it and they're not even thinking about it. Like in the book, like you mentioned, you have a whole section on the racist practices in the banking system. Do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. So that chapter is called "Buck the Fanks," For those who have read it, in the new book, is a chapter that's actually called "Fuck the Banks." So just leave it all out there.
There
But
you go.
yes, this chapter was literally, this is my favorite chapter to write because what it shows is that for the Black community as well as others, that we owe the banking industry nothing. If you get slapped and kicked and beat up and jumped by a group of people, at no point do you need to apologize to them and ask them for mercy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to protect yourself. This is what banks have done with our economy, with us in general, with redlining, with the overall discrimination. And I just wanted to outline it, and I wanted to make sure it was recent because a lot of people have this thought process. Yeah, banks were racist back in the 70s. They were
Yeah.
racist in the 60s. Every example I gave was from 2009 up to now. So it was like, this is very, very recent. This is not something that's, our grandparents experienced it. So, along with them and the Federal Reserve, I wanted to make sure I hit more on the Federal Reserve in the second book. But I want people to understand that you don't owe them anything. So there's no reason to try and save this economy that supposedly has not worked for most people in our community. So I just wanted to make sure they have that information so that you don't use Bitcoin in a way that I think is getting bastardized right now. Most people are
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh, it's just an investment. Oh, it's just an asset where everybody makes money." It's like, no, you have to remember that at the core of this, Bitcoin is a tool of freedom, and if you're going to do it, you have to know who the opponent is. It is the overall banking and money structure.
See, and that's the point. And I love it. And you pulled out actual quotes, actual articles. This isn't some sort of hearsay. These were actual lawsuits that were settled and verdicts that were rendered and that sort of thing. And it was a point. And that I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, this was all very recent. And it kind of was kind of those things of going, wait a minute. Yeah, there have been from the legacy financial system, I guess you'd say, like some real practices that have been implemented in place to disadvantage
Mhm.
Black America. And I love the fact of you then pointing then to Bitcoin, like you just said, of it being freedom, of a departure from that legacy system.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we should regard them as something that is a necessary evil, not something that we are dying to. I want to get a bank job. I want to work for a bank, or I want to help. If you do that, that's fine. I understand people got to make money. Just don't complain about the current financial system that we have. You can't complain and then help it. You're not going to change it from the inside. I don't care what anybody says. Like that, you can get rid of that dream. Like, oh, I'm gonna build my way up, and I'm gonna show. No, you're not. That's not gonna happen. So you do have to have something, another option, and I think Bitcoin is that.
Absolutely. One of the things you also mentioned here was you talked about basically some of the things that are being done with Bitcoin, with crypto, like some of the scaling solutions that are in place with the Lightning Network. But you also talked about us then as a community playing our part in like some of these solutions and implementations. You might speak on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the Lightning Network, it gives people the ability for a very low cost to set up our hardware where you can have your own channel and you can make money off of fees based on other people's transactions. Lightning Network is very early. The actual market cap is not very high, so it is a early time to get into it. And for most people, they didn't get into Bitcoin when it was $1 or a $10, $100, especially in the Black community. I know it wasn't that many people, Black
Yeah.
people that got in back then, but the Lightning Network affords a community where opportunity where as a community you can have different channels that we run based on just small $200, $300 worth of hardware. These channels can make you thousands, hundreds of thousands over time based on the fact that you get small amount of fees to keep the network going. So Lightning Network is another example of being able to get in early as far as adoption. And whenever we have these off-chain transactions, which will happen because Bitcoin's blockchain is going to get too congested. Too many people are going to try to use it. So off-chain solutions like Lightning Network will become popular. I'm basically just telling people, like I was telling Bitcoin 8 years earlier, Lightning Network about 4 years earlier than it's really developed. But once it's here, if you already have stuff in place, I think our community can take advantage.
See, and that's what I love because there are many though. I mean, there are many people who kind of have a perspective where they go, well, wait a minute, man. I mean, Bitcoin, it's already at what,
Mhm.
$19,000 or whatever. All the gains have been made and that sort of thing. There's no place for me to play where I can share in some of the upside. Of course, I think many of us are still saying, hey, I think we're gonna go far greater than 19,000,
Oh, yeah.
eventually in the future, like than that. But that's good that that you pointed that out to us, and like, from the community, like, no, there is so much work that needs to be done in roads and plumbing and that sort of thing, where
Mhm.
we as a community can really play a big part and share in the upside of what's going to take place. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you compare it to the internet, all of the gadgets and gadgets, all of the moving pieces that make the internet work, half of that was not even invented in 95 and 90 when it became popular. So once did become popular, if black people would have been, more into the space, maybe we would have had a black founder of Facebook, a black founder of Google. You know what I mean? Like it's more the educational and being able to observe that it's happening. Now that we know it, now what are we going to do? So just trying to make that possible with Bitcoin.
okay, all right. So let me ask you this one. Okay, because you just touched on education. All right, Thanksgiving tomorrow. Here we go. Here's that conversation around the
Oh
table.
man,
Isaiah, how do we do this? How do we do this
hey,
with like give
well
us some advice now.
I would say, hey man, hey, yeah, you can pop your collar and walk in cheesing tomorrow at Thanksgiving dinner. I told you. I mean, you literally, if you bought the top in 2017,
Yeah.
you're in profit right now. So everybody who, for the most part, is in their mind like, hey, I took a chance on something over the last few years. I've been building, which is great. I tell people all the time in the bear market, if you build, when that price goes up, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels real good to have things in place while the price is going up. So that is something that, hey, pop your collar, walk into Thanksgiving tomorrow. You be like, hey, I don't even have to wait for prayer. I can just go ahead and start eating. I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin community are going to gloat, crypto community. Unfortunately, as somebody who's been in the market a long time, if you are one of those people that are gloating, and then other people are like, "Oh yeah, well we're in crypto too," it might be time to sell, because that's kind of when it's like, okay, well grandma has bought Ripple, so now, so now, now it's time to get out. So, but it's all good, it's all love. Some people just don't understand it. I have people in my own family like that. They've come around after a while. I think the best way for people to understand it is to see success. Just honestly, I don't really see another way. But in my eyes, Bitcoin at this point has proven itself as a store of value, and everybody in your family should at least hear the word Bitcoin. Now, I'm with the people that's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not about to spend my
Yeah.
Thanksgiving explaining mining and blockchain statistics. I'm with you. I don't even want to do that. But it's going
Yeah.
to come up. I just want to make sure people hear the word. If they have questions later, that's fine. So just push it till Tech Monday. Tell them, hey, call me on Monday.
Okay, well there you go. Well, let me ask you this then. In a very concise way, if someone were to say, okay, well, tell me about it real quick. You got an elevator pitch.
Mhm.
What is your elevator pitch to them? To someone to convince them to say, hey, okay, let me take a greater look at this thing.
Oh yeah. So I usually say, "Do you trust your government?" And that's usually like a 99% no. It's like, oh, so why would you trust their money? And then they're like, yeah, you're probably right. They're not going to do it. And I was like, well, Bitcoin is another option. And then they'll usually listen to it. And
Good.
honestly, I think it's that simple because everybody, they can make up all these reasons to be into Bitcoin. But I always tell people, at the end of the day, any type of currency where you are self sovereign is a enemy to the face of a ruling body. And if you're so-called not impressed with this ruling body, or if you want to change it, you have to start with the money. That's the foundation. Whoever controls money controls the people. So if you take that control away, you won't have to worry about these politicians or whoever else that doesn't like our community. So start there. People like it, and they'll at least listen now. I think before it was kind of hard because they were like, "So who cares? Like, why would I get a Bitcoin, a Bitcoin, or whatever people call
Right.
it?" It's all good now.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because we always know. Listen, there's always those naysayers that come back and they push, and then I had a man one time told me, he said, a little bit of information sometimes can be a bit dangerous.
Mhm.
So there are people who have heard and they have made say, hey, well, I actually heard that the government's going to ban it. So why would I do
Exactly.
it? What is your pushback when you get hit with stuff like that?
Well, usually I tell people, well, more for me. I just kind of brush it off. I don't care. At this point, I really don't care. But I kind of use that as like a reverse. reverse psychology technique because for some reason, when I was really passionate about it, nobody listened to me. But as soon as I was
Mm.
like, I don't need you anymore. We don't. Nobody cares. And they were like, well, tell me a little bit more because I might want to get involved in this. Then all of a sudden, you can go from there. I don't really care about the I was right stage of it. What I care about is the fact that if we have a solution, we have a way to solve the problems we keep talking about. I would hate for us to miss this opportunity. So for people who are especially older, if you read the news, watch the news, if you follow it, which most older people do, you're not going to get an accurate report about Bitcoin. I'm not saying I'm the only person that knows, people like yourself, but you're not going to get it from mainstream media. You're just not. And the way you should think about it is think about how they describe black people in the media. If you think that's accurate, then if you think that's inaccurate, then that's the same thing with Bitcoin. And anything that's a threat to the status quo is always going to be misquoted, misrepresented. And of course, anytime something happens, they're going to push the news a lot harder than. Of course, I've had people say, "I heard Bitcoin got hacked," and I'm like, "Reading
No.
comprehension, reading comprehension." People, no, don't. Nothing happened to Bitcoin. That's like saying a bank got robbed, so the dollar fell. Like, what are you talking about? No, just that bank got robbed. That person lost their Bitcoin. Calm down, people. And just getting over the fear of investment. I think black people we got to get there. If we got to pull them into the new economy or whatever we have to do, that's fine.
See, I like that point though, of raising that doubt that they probably never considered. Wait a minute, I guess there is another way outside of this. One of the things too is I love the fact that you pull different areas and you then begin to talk in how Bitcoin and how crypto could serve in solving problems in a different way for each of those areas. And one of those, and you kind of just touched on it, we're going to bring it up. We're just, hey, listen, it's kind of fresh here, and that's politics. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Isaiah, what do you think? Tell us your vantage point on how we could then leverage and use Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to solve some of our problems that we have.
Oh yeah. So if I had to keep it as simple as possible, so what I would say is that crypto people, you should get as rich as possible so you can pay off politicians because that is how politics work. All of this voting and marching and trying to get politics, writing them letters, that is not how the world moves. The world moves because you have lobbyists who get paid by rich corporations to go into Senate, go into the House of Representatives, plead their case. They go to lunch together, they go to golf together, go to dinner together. I've been to dinner with some of these people. They literally talk about what they're going to do. That's how politicians they push stuff forward. Those people give them money. That's how they get votes. So in the crypto world, at a certain point, I believe they're going to have billionaires and trillionaires who can have enough influence over politicians, maybe even at the presidential level, where we can get the type of laws we want for a better money system. That may be 10 years, maybe 20 years from now, but I think that's where we're headed at a certain point because everybody knows money makes the world go round. Why would you think politics would be involved? So I'm not a very political person myself because, from a business standpoint, I realize it's just a show. I mean, if you got to put on makeup to go out and tell people about your political standpoint, then it's a show. That is a TV show. So it's really just it is. And Biden's in now. Trump was in before. My motto has been, "I will make money during any administration." So if you believe that, because as a man, I can't look my newborn daughter in the face like, "Man, I'm sorry we couldn't make it because we got a president that I don't like." Like that. That's not going. I can't use that excuse. That's terrible. I can't create generational wealth because this dude I don't like in DC who's never gonna meet me. But yeah, so as far as politics go, I think use it to your advantage if you can. And I think in the crypto world, the best thing you can do is try to push for what I would say regulatory sandboxes, but also try to accumulate as much as possible so that in the future we'll have the assets to push for the politicians we want.
Got it. You mentioned something also in the book in another area, and you mentioned sports. And honestly, Zay, until I read this, and it should seem elementary, I never thought about it. But it wasn't. Of course, I'm aware of Spencer Dinwiddie and Russell Okon and the other NFL. I mean, other sports stars who are saying things like pay me in Bitcoin and that sort of thing. But you said something in the book that I never thought about, and that was the fact of if the majority of these athletes now start saying, pay me in Bitcoin, that's going to cause the NFL, the NBA, whomever, then to have to go and purchase Bitcoin And then
Yep.
that will actually drive up the adoption that much more. I was like,
A-
oh, that makes sense. I didn't even think about
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the foundation of money. Money is based on consensus. If I give you $1, the consensus is you can give it to someone else. That's all money is. So as soon as players are demanding, I want to be paid in Bitcoin, and it becomes sort of a medium of exchange more than a store of value, I believe that they won't have a choice. Because as much as people look at these big institutions, most of the decisions they make are based on the people, whether you believe it or not. Now, of course, they may not consult you, but they look at data, they look at your actions. They look at things such as, hey, pay me in Bitcoin. They see how the market's moving. They're like, hey, it may be good to pay in Bitcoin. Even the Sacramento Kings, they were mining at their facility for cryptocurrency to donate to charities. So they looked at it, saw the data, saw this is what people want, and I think we're moving there. That would be dope to have some athletes get paid in Bitcoin. I mean, we've had some mention it, but to say LeBron says that, you think there's not
oh
going to
my
be a
goodness.
shuffle? There's not going to be a worldwide shuffle to figure out how can we get Bitcoin so we can pay him. I don't think they're gonna turn down money, but it would be great to see just to see see one big athlete say it.
You're pretty much forcing the adoption itself. I mean, you're
Yeah,
forcing then, yeah, like it puts pretty much puts it on, and it's funny because you think about that, not just from athletes, anyone could do this. Actors could do this. Like anyone could do that, where they could demand that in their contract that they are paid in Bitcoin. And wow, like look what that would do
mhm,
overall. Like just for the network and ecosystem itself. My
mhm.
goodness.
Yeah,
One other thing that you mentioned there, and I thought this was very, very key, and I kind of tie this, Isaiah, to what we were talking about earlier when we're talking about convincing maybe potential naysayers or those who maybe have heard this a little bit of information and they're kind of nervous about it. But you talked about the Black church, and as I say Black church, you also talked about other Black nonprofit organizations and how they then could accept Bitcoin for either their tithe or their donations. And you kind of, and as I read that, I remember thinking to myself, and my goodness, imagine that if they had done that in 2018 and been taking it in at 3,000 when we were at some of these lower levels or whatever, and where they would be in literally 2 years time now. You might talk on that a little bit because it requires a little bit of foresight, but then
mhm.
you look at it, you go, wow, that's a huge win in a short period of time. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think churches are well, I don't think I know they are the financial epicenter of a lot of Black communities.
yeah,
You go to a Black street, MLK Boulevard, in almost every city in America, there's 8 churches on one street. They're there. So even if you're not religious, I'm not religious myself. I realize that people do spend their money there. People give 10% in tithes. They also give offerings. They also give gifts, donations, whatever. Now, when I looked at the Catholic Church, I saw that they had gold, they had real estate, they had stocks, they have all types of things that they tie their wealth up in because generationally they can build for forever. I mean, Notre Dame burned down and they built it back in like 2 days.
sure
Like
did.
they have enough money to where they are a force to be reckoned with for generations. I think as a store of value, if the Black community or Black churches could have used it as a store of value, they absolutely would have a leg up, so to say, financially. And just giving an example, there was it wasn't a Black church, but it was a group of people, and we actually met at a church. I was trying to get them to buy 50 bitcoins back in the day for when it was $500, and or I'm sorry, 100 bitcoins when it was $500, 50K. There's a group of millionaires, they wouldn't do it. Today, that would be worth almost $2 million, a little bit more. So they complained about an educational problem, but they didn't have a store of value that would get them the funds that would solve that problem. So they ignored it, didn't go with it. That's the thing. I think churches are doing the same thing if they don't at some point start to accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for payments and use it as a store of value. Store it, keep it, hold it. Because long term, you're going to see if as a Black church, I know Steve Harvey, he joked, ain't fixed the doorknob in 10 years, 20 years. Uh, if you as a church are like, hey, we need wealth for the long term, why would you not use the best, in my opinion, store of value long term? It's where we're going, so why not start or at least get the stuff in place? You may get a QR code, a wallet, learn how to use it. You may not get a Bitcoin donation for a year, but when it becomes popular, when it becomes regular, you already have the stuff in place. You have the accounting, you have all the software network and stuff. So I just think Black churches can take advantage of that, and that would, in my opinion, get the word out to Black people faster. Because who do people listen more than their pastor? I mean, there's some people they'll take their pastor over, they'll take their own family. So if your pastor knows about Bitcoin, which I got this idea, I came up with it, but I spoke with Russell Okung's pastor. That was the first person I spoke with.
Okay.
Who used to play for the Chargers. Russell Okung plays for Panthers now.
Mhm.
I talked with his pastor for 30 minutes at a conference, and I was just explaining to him. He was like, "Why don't I know this? Because now I can tell my 2,000 members, and they all, you know what I mean. So it's a lot easier, a lot more efficient. I think they hold a lot of weight in the community, and I think Bitcoin has to be a part of the discussion, especially if you got financial people talking. At this point in Bitcoin's history, if you're a financial person and Bitcoin
Mhm.
doesn't come up, I'm looking at you kind of sideways now. So it's not a novelty or something that's gonna go away.
That's so true. And you think about it now when we look at some of these apps. I mean, this would be as simple as whatever someone was going to donate or whatever their tithe was going to be, is as simple as them going onto Cash App or Coinbase or whatever, purchasing like that same amount
Mhm.
in Bitcoin and then sending that over into the churches or the charity's wallet, that was already
Mhm.
set up. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it wouldn't be some sort of thing that would be breaking their pockets to do that. It would
Mhm.
be already the number they already have set aside to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and I mean, if we even layer it from there, give some people some game. This is in the second book. If you use a service called Lolly, I don't know if you heard of Lolly. You use Lolly, buy stuff you already buy. You get Bitcoin cash back rewards. On average, I've seen people get $50, $100 a month. Use that to pay tithes. Use that Bitcoin for your tithes. Now you have a circular economy. Now the church has Bitcoin. Now that church can say, "Hey, we want to do this with Bitcoin because the value went up 200%." You know what I mean? It's a very simple thing, and you don't have to stop doing what you're doing. You just have to
That's right.
tweak a couple things, and then you go from there. So I think we can layer it, and also, of course, with churches going forward, move into the future. Have a website, maybe with BitGive. BitGive has something called Give Track, 501(c)(3). But I mean, that would be great. I think if we get a whole list of Black churches in
Yes,
America, get on BitGive, one big give track. Every church that's in your city, you can donate Bitcoin to them and go from there. I mean, why not?
that makes a lot of sense. It's funny as you're saying that, and as you mentioned the Black church. Also, when you were talking about the Catholic Church, these are also institutions. And let's be honest, what we have seen in 2020 when it comes to the institutions, when we look at Square, when we look at MicroStrategy, these are institutions
Mhm,
that are making big bets
mhm,
on Bitcoin and taking out, I think MicroStrategy probably took the largest part of their cash reserves and converted it
mhm.
over into Bitcoin. But the churches are the same way. They're also institutions that could, do
Yeah,
the same.
yeah. I mean, this goes back to when you were saying, what if people have doubts? That's one of the first things I bring up is that somebody bought $425 million worth of Bitcoin, and Michael Saylor is a billionaire. The second richest man in Mexico, 10% of his portfolio is in Bitcoin. If you're smarter than them, then cool, that's fine. I can't touch you, brother. Hey, way too smart for me. Things like that, I think, when they come up, should convince most every person who reads that story should convince you, hey, my little business that's doing a quarter million a year, 50,000 a year. Why are we not doing it? If they're doing it to get ahead and they're already billionaires, if you're not rich, do as the rich people do. And as most people who have been in business realize, most of business is copying what's been successful. As soon as people are seeing, like now, this has been successful, not only has his corporate treasury went up 60%, his stock has gone through the roof because now his investors are like, well, now our company is worth more because it's in
Right.
Bitcoin now. So now we
Right.
can get more stock. So now it helps you on both ends. So it's like it's a win-win, and it's so easy. It's tough for people. They're like, it shouldn't be this easy. And I'm like, yeah, it is. You just have to move from a financial system built to push you down to a financial system that's built to build you up. The more work you put into it, quite literally, the more valuable it becomes. That's how money should work.
Got it. Okay, so let me ask you this. All right, and this is kind of too, like kind of thinking about that in line. Of course, we talked about institutions, and in that case, but and listen, this is not financial advice for everyone. Just understand that this is all we're just two guys talking. But for a black family itself, as we start scaling this down, do you see this as being a potential way that a black family could really start establishing this as a cornerstone of their long-term financial legacy.
Absolutely, yes. So, growing up, financial talk was not a big thing. It just wasn't.
Mhm.
So, I think in the next generation, we have to make it a thing. So, of course, there's other aspects of finances. However, I think Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology is so important. It should be sort of like you said, the cornerstone of what we use to explain to families. In the second edition, I actually write about Bitcoin and generational wealth, Bitcoin and marriage, and what happens in a divorce, what happens with alimony, what happens long term with keeping your money in a family. All of that matters because in the black family structure, if we're going to stick together long term, the money has to be right. And of course, if you have Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you have to know how to use it. And I think if the mom, the dad, the whoever, the older brothers, if they know about it, the younger kids can learn about it, and vice versa. Because kids find out about stuff first, and then they go back and tell the parents, and like, this is good for us. So, one of the solutions that I've had to try and do both is a Bitcoin summer camp that we have coming next summer. But also because of the Bitcoin summer camp, we give adults free classes because there's no reason to give a whole summer camp to kids, teach them, and then the adults are like, I have no clue what that is. You should know too. This is for
Yeah,
you. It's just we want to
absolutely.
get them started early because everybody needs to know. So if you treat it that way, that families need to know, I think that is a great way to go about
I love that idea of a Bitcoin summer camp. I mean, that would be
it. Yeah.
fantastic.
Shout out to JC and Naja Roberts in Inglewood, California. They had the first one, Crypto Kids Camp last year. Couldn't do it this year because of COVID, of course, but they had the first one. We had one last year right after it. So the next one when we can get it going, it'll be great.
I love it. I love it. That is a great idea. Start the young generation off now, understanding this. And let's be honest, most of the time for them, they're going to understand the digital world and assets and value in the digital world much more than I think that maybe older people may. I mean, they're on games, they play games, they whatever the
Yeah.
case is, and they get it. It makes sense to
Yeah.
them.
But I mean, you got some older people that still say in the computer, so they're not gonna get. It's still like it's in the computer, like
Yeah.
yeah, man. So of course, kids that play video games all the time, they are used to digital money. They see, 2K bucks or Fortnite bucks. My nephew was talking about budgeting his Roblox money because he was broke. I was like, how do you even know about budgeting for a mortgage or a house because Roblox is showing him? So, yeah, he's 8. So that's the thing. They learn early. You start them early with cryptocurrency. I think they'll take it and run. As adults, you should just have the money to support it and support yourself as well.
It's very true. There are times I remember this, and I'll be honest. Full disclosure. Listen, I'm one of those dads who was always like, "Man, would y'all get off the games? Would you cut this thing off?" Like I'll be. I was totally. Would you shut that thing off? It's right in your brain. Cut it up like that. I was like that. And I remember my son one time I was in his room and he was like, "Dad, I'm playing this team from Peru." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And like that kind of thing. He goes, "No, we're like doing these betting matches
Mhm.
on." I forgot what he was playing. He was either Dota or one of those games. And we're doing these betting matches, and there's like real money up for it. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's such a different world that for them, they immediately grasp it and understand it.
Yeah.
And this is to me the real game of it, where they can really say, "Oh, okay,
And,
now I get
and,
it."
and it's funny you mentioned that as a dad saying, "Hey, turn that off," and then seeing how much video game maker players make, you're like, "Oh, well, you can make money. Yeah, keep doing it."
Yeah,
But
man, come
yeah,
on,
yeah,
man.
keep going, keep going. You know,
You've
the
been
same thing
practicing. You
happened.
haven't been practicing.
Same thing happened with crypto. It's happening right now. Imagine telling a kid not to invest in it. Don't buy it. It's you shouldn't use it because it's scary. And then somebody like Spencer Schiff, who Peter
Yes,
Schiff is a famous gold investor. His son, he bought
yes,
Bitcoin against his consultation, and he's up like 80-90% right now. I think Schiff is down 4%. So it's like, what do you tell your kid? What do you tell a 15-year-old who makes a bunch of money off of crypto? You can't tell them to stop at that point. Like, oh, like what? You go harder, and that's what I think is going to happen. Because, hey, man, kids know how to use digital currency. It's just kind of natural to them because they've been on phones. It's not different to them. It's just a natural progression.
yeah. Like, okay, it's funny. Like, I just saw Tesla just mention waiting for Peter Schiff to give in. Okay, let me ask you this. Why don't I still see people like Peter Schiff, and if people don't know, you can Google and look at Peter Schiff, Wall Street investor, massive gold bug.
Yeah.
But I look at people like him and people like Noel Rabini, and these people will not bend the knee. Like Isaiah, like what is
Yeah.
going on there? Like what? I mean, what is the
Yeah,
deal?
Well, Peter Schiff, I think at first I thought he, with all his conviction, thought he was right. I think he was really like when Bitcoin was $1, 10. He was like, "What? Ain't nobody think about some digital." I think he really thought he was right. The problem is he had an old way of thinking. Like I saw somebody comment, you have to change your way of thinking. He had an old way of thinking. So even in the face of all the evidence, I think at this point he shifted and he was like, "Okay, well, Bitcoin's gonna make it, but I'm gonna play the bad guy." He gets way more traction being the bad guy than he does, sort of agreeing with everybody who talks about Bitcoin. So the outliers, their names, Rubini, Schiff, they're more popular because of that. If you talked about everybody who agreed in the Bitcoin world, it'd be like, oh yeah, the same old people we know. But those guys they literally get press from both sides because they don't quote unquote like it. But I think Schiff has some Bitcoin somewhere.
Oh yeah, he
You
better
don't have
back
to tell
up.
anybody. I mean, you don't have to tell us, but every time he goes hard, I'm like, yeah, at this point, he's just trolling. He's not necessarily, yeah. I don't think he's convicted by what he's saying.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how these guys are. It kind of reminds me almost like of like pro wrestling, where the one guy comes out with one flag for one country, another flag for more country, and they're acting like they're fighting each other, this and that, and then they get and the crowd's all whipped up in a frenzy, and then you find out afterwards like they're drinking a beer together, and you're
Yeah,
like, well,
exactly.
what?
Yeah, like the presidential debates.
Yeah. That's exactly what that is. But like I guess there has been, this is be honest, there has been some real magician work from people like Jamie Dimon, who kind of came out, right, a few years ago, like saying one thing, and then listen, these people don't just pivot like that quickly.
Yeah.
I believe that like he was saying one thing at one point, and then the other time he was completely doing something else. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, Jamie was on stage saying crypto's not going to make it, while simultaneously having an Ethereum conference in Denver or in San Francisco. Sorry, don't believe these people, and that's one of the things with our daily show. We say it all the time. Whatever they say in the media is either already happened or do the opposite. So if they're telling you buy this asset because it's going to go, it's already happened. Like you missed it. Or if they tell you, hey, don't do this or blah 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 is going to happen, do the opposite. Usually, my hit rate's about 90% just doing the opposite of what the media says. So yeah, because usually their goal is entertainment. It's not actual news or education. So Jamie Dimon, to me, again, if he just keeps saying no, I don't like Bitcoin, he gets way more press for that. If he at some point agreed with it, I don't even think he can. His masters won't let him. Jamie Dimon got bosses too, so
true.
he can't say anything good about Bitcoin ever. But he can make JPM coin. He can invest in crypto companies and make his money on ramps and then kind of keep it quiet. But we see you, Jamie. We've made him dinosaur today plenty of times.
I've seen some of your episodes. We all made him dinosaur today.
He's one of the main ones, definitely.
It's hilarious. Well, let me say this to you, because of course people. No one has a crystal ball. No one has a crystal ball. We don't know. But for people, if someone's watching this now and they're saying, Isaiah, you have convinced me. I'm ordering Bitcoin in Black America right now. I am ready to get in. Where would you say to them, like, what is some of the things you say? So some of the first steps, even baby steps that person could take.
First step would be get an account on Lolly. And the best thing about Lolly is you don't even have to have a wallet yet. You know what I mean? They have a built-in wallet. You get on Lolly, you see the things that you buy anyway, purchase them, you get Bitcoin cashback rewards. You don't even have to buy it, you earn it. And once you get a few, you can start to see the rewards you're getting. Like I know one guy was telling me he was constantly getting, maybe 20 here, 30 there, $30. That $400 or $500 he accumulated is now worth like $1,700. Like he's about to have a Christmas off of just Lolly, just accumulation. Bitcoin cashback. Yeah, stuff he's already buying. He was like, yeah, I buy groceries. I buy, Sephora. My wife gets makeup. You know what I mean? Like this, I would say anybody who's new, point them to Lolly. They can get it going just buying the stuff they already buy. Now, of course, for the more purist people, of course, you want people to download a wallet. You also want people to understand that private key that's in that wallet is yours to safeguard it. That would be the first thing, so to say, and go from there. Anybody who's new to it, but they've heard of it, but they haven't actually done anything about it, get some skin in the game. Just buy some crypto. Even if it's $1 on Cash App or $2, get some skin in the game. Send it, receive it. Small things just to learn, simply because if you don't have skin in the game, you can always just say, well, I don't have nothing to do with it. I don't have anything to do. Once you get skin in the game, you'll research, trust me. And you'll definitely look up what you need to prosper in this game.
Okay, that's good advice, and I like that. I like that as you talked about using Lolly, because that's one of those very easy ways for someone who's already like the risk is like not even there.
There's zero risk on Lolly outside of the fact that you're going to spend money you're going to spend anyway.
Yeah, you're already going to buy that. I remember one time, man, I went and Lolly had I think Advanced Auto.
Yeah,
was
Advanced
Lolly.
Auto.
And I needed to get some brakes. I went there, went to the app, bought the brakes, got some Bitcoin for that. I mean, like that, very simple ways with like you said, with very zero risk. So I like that, because a lot of times for people, they're very afraid, they're very reticent, and they're thinking, oh my goodness, and it's and we know Bitcoin does have volatility. Speaking of that too, like, what do you think about that? Like what is your mindset, Isaiah, to approach the volatility where we've seen it, where we've seen big wicks down and also tremendous upside. But what is your mindset when you do see the volatility that takes place?
Oh yeah. So unfortunately, volatility gets a bad rep because people are like, oh yeah, volatile. If it's volatile, volatility is good if you know what you're doing. That's the best part about this market, is that the volatility actually gave way to a asset to go from 6 cents to 20,000. It's volatile, but it's volatile in the right direction. All of the low time preference people who are trying to get rich quick, 3 months, 6 months, some people 3 weeks. They're like, I just want to get, I've heard people get millionaires. All of those people talk about volatility. Anybody who's been in the Bitcoin market at any point in our history, we're almost there. At any point in our history, if you bought Bitcoin, you're in profit. We're almost there. So once I think, past the all-time high, we get to higher heights. I think people will start to realize it's like literally at any point in our history, if you bought it and sat on it, you make money. So that's not really a concern. So I usually go with that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's something, and that's a great point about the volatility itself being an asset, and it kind of does. And listen, if you're a gold bug and you're at it, like I'm not at all throwing any shots at you or anything like that. That's great, but it's
I am. Gold is a shiny rock and nobody wants it. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. But when you look at over the time, over probably maybe the past couple of decades, what is the percentage of gold of where it's went from where it was then to where it is now?
I don't know. I just remember when I was looking at gold like a decade ago, it was like 1,500. I think now it's at 1,800.
Yes.
I had a full debate with a lady back in 2015. I made her a bet. I was like, one Bitcoin is going to be worth more than an ounce of gold one day. And this is when Bitcoin was like $400. So this was a big bet. She was looking at it. She was like, it's $400. She was like, gold is like 1,500. It'll take a 300, a 3x to get there. Now, listen to somebody say that. Like, it'll take a 3x to get there. In the crypto world, they're like, all right, we'll see you in 6 months. Like, what? That's whatever. So yeah, I actually took a bet or tried to take a bet. She wouldn't take it. I was like, I would take one Bitcoin versus hers in a year. Of course, Bitcoin flew past 1,500. I mean, we're not even. I wish Bitcoin would get back to 1,500. But yeah, flew past that, and people were looking at it, as far as how volatile, quote unquote, it was. And I was like, well, the thing with gold is it's very stable, but it's not going to earn you any money. If you want to stay the same, it's very stable. Yeah, great, go gold. But unfortunately, it definitely doesn't have the use case. You can't transport it the same way. You can't shave off pieces of gold to make payments. You can't really establish that your gold is yours unless it's in your house, like gold bricks. But if you got $1 million worth of gold, who has gold bricks in the house? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into gold that I was like, all right, I don't hate it. People are into a gold, silver, precious metals. Cool, I understand the use case, but I just think Bitcoin is better store of value because way too many factors going into the future.
It does seem that way, because when we start looking at our world, if you ask yourself, okay, over this next decade, this 2020, is the world going to be more digital or less digital over this next decade, right?
Yeah. If you can remember 10 years ago, then you can remember 10 years from now. And what I tell people is, if you think we're going backwards, meaning that we're going to get less digital, like you just said, then there's something wrong with you. Especially, like, I hate to say it, but especially a lot of times, older people, I'm like, you saw where you might have had a rotary phone when you were a kid. all the way up to now your phone can basically bake cookies for you now. You've seen this growth technology and you don't think it's going to continue. Like, what do you think is going to happen? So in the money world, this is just a big change, so to say, and I think that's what people can't wrap their mind around it, because this is like the Industrial Revolution, or when the Federal Reserve was created. Like, this is a big moment in history.
See, that's good that you put it that way. And I think that many times, well, let's just be honest, we have a lot going on in our world. We have a lot going on in the national stage and globally. There's a lot going on. So I think this is one of those. To me, this is one of those big undercurrents that's running underneath of us, and that some people have their eyes on, like us, we're
Yeah.
focusing on. But I feel like for the masses, and Sri always puts up this chart, and it talks about the laggards and the late adopters and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But it's like for most of the masses, they kind of have their focus on some of those other things. And listen, I'm not saying that those aren't important,
Mhm.
but this is one of those really strong undercurrents is running underneath. And then I kind of just feel there's going to be this tipping point that's going to happen, and then we're going to look up. And this is, to be honest, I think we kind of felt this. You know, you just talked about this like the past decade. I think we felt this past decade. It was at one point where we were like, oh, wait a minute, these apps, Facebook, Twitter, like these things are really powerful in
Oh, yeah.
moving global conversations and political
Mhm.
decisions that are made. These are really, really powerful. And it felt like in one moment like that happened.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time on the news they quoted a tweet. This was like 2014 maybe. And I was like, why would you go to Twitter to get your news? Now, I don't think news stations leave Twitter. Like, they can't get it from anywhere, because Twitter has it instantly first. And
Yes.
then they report it later at night at 6, or later during the day. So yeah, you see how quick that flip happened. Coronavirus actually sped it up for a lot of people, because I remember when I used to discuss Bitcoin, I used to say, yeah, brick and mortar places, you can use a QR code to make payments. And they were like, what? A QR code? I don't understand. Now, coronavirus sped that up.
Sure did.
It's right on it. Everybody can scan it for the menu, and they're like, oh, that's easy. You just take a picture. Exactly. Now you just pushed you 5 years into the future. You didn't even realize it. And this is this is what these things do. And I think Bitcoin is one example of that. It's just going. We have to pull them along, and the laggards, they'll get in when they get in. I think Buffett will be one of those people that buys it when it's $1 million. Uh, but it's all good.
That's funny. Yeah, and I noticed, I saw Cherie, I saw Tessa, I saw a couple of people here mentioning Buffett and talking about him, because he's one. And Isaiah, what's really interesting about this time and of just with Bitcoin and crypto is you have very successful, established people.
Mhm.
Okay, they normally, for the most part, you would listen to them and take their advice on,
Normally.
especially financial matters. Probably, I don't know, 99 whatever percent of the time, because they're success. This
Mhm.
is one of those few times that I found this out and go, okay, this is interesting, because you know what?
Mhm.
I know he's really successful. I know he's made a lot of money. What
But
is
he's
wrong
wrong.
about this?
He's wrong. Yeah. And and I had to learn that the hard way. I would say that to myself, but I was, a 24-year-old in a hoodie walking up to financial managers at Morgan Stanley at, some of these conferences. Like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense, because Bitcoin makes sense. And of course, why would you listen to me? Now, of course, at this point, a lot more respect for Bitcoin as an industry, but I understood where I was coming from. It's like, it's pretty hard to convince somebody that's done it this long. So, people that get advice from Buffett, they get advice from some of these big people. I would say, if you look at it, it is kind of split. Buffett's name is bigger, but Stanley Druckenmiller is probably the highest regarded investor in the world, and he has Bitcoin. So that's the thing; it's kind of split. However, the more famous people are going to say, "No, I don't want it. I don't use it." Mark Cuban, he said bananas are better. These people, I just
Yeah,
think, they just talk. Nobody stop listening to them. They just talk. But yeah, I think some of the older investors, or seasoned investors, I would say, they have to see it play out more in their eyes, because it's not institutional. But we're getting there. It's slow. I think once we hit a $1 trillion market, that's that's when all the ring, and we're at what, 360 billion.
yeah,
That can happen by this time next year. $1 trillion market is nothing. Nobody will be able to say anything at that
that's funny. No one would. I, you and I, like I said before, no one has a crystal ball. But do you kind of predict that we will have some sort of cultural shifts? One of the things about this is when this happens, this Bitcoin is it's not it's very vacuumous. Like it begins to like really pull in a lot more than just being just an asset. And I told people there's no other asset class for some reason that operates the way that this operates. When this happens, it has an effect that I haven't seen in any other asset class, not real estate, not gold, not precious metals, not oil, anything else, no other commodities. Something about this that it just connects deeply with people and it has some sort of effect. What do you think of that?
I know. I had this discussion with a Bitcoin friend, and we were talking about philosophically
Yes.
how Bitcoin just happened to show up right when we had our big financial crisis. You know what I mean? Like just thinking about, I was like, that's kind of weird. Then we also were thinking about Bitcoin being pure energy. It's literally the more work you put in, the more prosperous you should be. And when it's controlled by humans, there's greed, there's lying. So you're going to have these things that hold you back. But technically, we were saying because of Bitcoin's nature, meaning that the more Bitcoin is used, the more people use it, the value is always going to go up forever and ever, basically. That's how things should be because as humans, the more work we've done, we've built an amazing earth that should be almost self-sufficient if money was allowed to go as it should. And people were allowed to do more activities and less work because we should be almost at a point now where robots can do most of the stuff and we can vacation most of the time. That's really how the world should be heading to. But like you said, it's a change in thought because you have to think about how we operate. People think, hey, yeah, you work hard, you make money, you do this. It's like, yeah, yeah. Well, what if you do what you love while you're alive? You love your family. You do, work at things you want to work at, but because your money system is constantly increasing in value long term, that is good energy, literally manifested into money, and that's why I think Bitcoin is on philosophical. Not to get too philosophical, but that's just one thing I've seen with Bitcoin is it makes you change the way you think, not just what you're doing. It makes you change the way you think, and of course, there's no utopia. It's never going to be perfect. I just
Right.
think that at the core of it, if money is free or if the money is free and you're like, hey, you're getting paid based off of your merit, then that's pretty much all Black people have wanted, just to be left alone. This is
That's
the
right.
best. This currency is literally the leave me alone currency, and you can have the ability to use it on your own terms. That's just fine with me. That's enough for me. I don't need anything else. Just leave me alone. I know I trust my abilities to work it from there. So I love the fact that people are starting to get more change of thought of how money works because it's not just an investment.
I love that. I'm telling you, like about it making you change the way you think.
Mhm.
That's it in a nutshell. Like, hey, I just got to tell you, Isaiah, like someone put a quote in. I saw Rich Davis put a quote in. He called you the Morpheus of Bitcoin. You want to take
Oh
that?
yeah, I'm offering red and blue pills every time I go out in public and try to see what people are gonna do. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So, okay, I'm just going to ask you because we're going to get ready to close out. Uh, Anything that you want to say, anything that thing you want to give out to the crowd about for probably even listen. We're about to close 2020, so we're gonna have 2021. I expect 2021 to be fireworks. I
Yes.
just do, But anything you want to say, kind of any kind of predictive analysis you want to say on 2021?
So just from a price standpoint, my
Yes.
prediction there, I think we
Okay.
will hit an all-time high. But I know how whales work as far as being in the trading market. Everybody can't get rich. So just remember
Got
that.
it.
People think, yeah, we all just put our money and we all become millionaires, right? No. There's going to be people who allow the all-time high to happen, in my opinion. They're gonna be, oh yeah, everybody's before it. All-time high happens, and then a few people are gonna start buying the top, just like last time, and they're gonna get smacked in the face with a 30% drawdown overnight while they sleep. I just think that's what's going to happen with the price at some point here in the next 3 months. I don't know
Right.
how far we'll slide, but I will say if Bitcoin does slide back into the 15, 16K range,
Yep.
uh, sell your house and mortgage and put in. I just if it slides in that range, you probably want to take a pretty big position because I think that's from there is where we start to see the six figures take off. If all of that is wrong, then that's fine with me because that means the price has went crazy. But I just think it's too easy right now. You know what I mean? Like it's too easy for everybody to get it. There has to be. Remember last bull run, everybody thought they were going to get rich. Uh, it
Right.
was it was smacked down very quickly because remember we hit 19,000 one day with the 17,000 the very next day. So a lot of people lost a lot of money, and at the time they were all, oh, I'll see what it's like. And then as soon as they bought the top, now they're crypto holders. They're part of the community now, and so that's just what happens. And I think that's what's gonna happen again. And I think we'll see the all-time high at the end of 2021, 4 to 4. I think this year is more 2016 than 2017. 2017 is like the huge run up, and if you look at the value, we have a 20x from where we are now. That's basically what I think 2016 did back then. It was 1,000 all-time high. We hit 1,000 again, but then it went sideways. Then we went to 20. I think that's what happened now. We went back to our all-time high. It's gonna go sideways for a couple months, and then we take off. But from a useful standpoint, Bitcoin's not going anywhere. I think we're gonna have a supply shortage. I think we're gonna have big companies fighting over having Bitcoin, and I think CBDCs are gonna show up and sort of spoil the party for a second, and then we're gonna get back to it. Like at some point, maybe 2022, 2023. But by that time, I think Bitcoin will be long and it'll be way bigger by then as a store value.
That's amazing. Hey, Isaiah Jackson, everybody, hey, please, if you haven't, go pick up a copy of Bitcoin in Black America and the second edition. I know for myself, I'm looking forward to the second edition. Isaiah, I got to have physical books. I'm not going to get the Kindle. I like reading the dog earring. I got your book all marked up in margins and stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to do. The second one, yeah, 100%. So I'm going to do that. So Isaiah, thank you so much for taking the time here on this Thanksgiving Eve for us and for others too, not just your book, but Gentlemen of Crypto podcast for everyone to go check out your YouTube podcast 5 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern time, correct?
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, appreciate that, man.
Perfect. Isaiah, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. And we really appreciate it. This was fantastic.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you all. Black Blockchain Consultants. Love you all, man. Keep pushing, baby. We got a long way to go.
Thank you, brother. Have a good night.
Yes, sir. You too. Have a good one.